Welcome to the Buka Twende Zamu podcast series, where we feature professionals across Zambia and the globe to share insight on how girls and young women can empower themselves, be leaders, as well as be innovative. I'm your host, Chibanguru Bikalaba. Joining us today is entrepreneur Aaron Mashano and CEO of EcoTribe, a waste management company. We're so excited to have him here today with us to discuss smart cities and waste disposal projects that will for sure have a positive impact on our listeners as well as the participants in the Girls Hackathon program. With that being said, let's give him a warm welcome and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Welcome to the show. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Anyway, so we have to just jump right into the discussion. So, because of time constraints. So yesterday, okay, wait, well, not yesterday. So basically, you've run many companies and okay, Tribe is quite different from what you have done in the past. So I'm sure a lot of people that know you or know about you are like wondering why are you focusing on waste management now? What has inspired you to get into waste management?
I think in our earlier conversations offline, we were discussing that my background, as you know, for maybe last 2 decades, I started doing SME coaching and consulting. And effectively, I think the best analogy I was saying there is I fell into that only because I was always in business doing different projects with other people. And I found that, you know, after some time, people would invite me for a coffee to discuss what I was doing because I started business when I was 12 years old, of course, selling cabbages right here in Ndola, Zambia. That was kind of entrepreneurial for me when I started. And I never thought about it because it was never a thing. Those days, if you're in business, chances are you weren't good at school or you're a crook or something. You know, those are the reputations back in my day. So anyway, fast forward, as I said, it just was always in projects, side hustles, or whatever you want to call them. So when people would ask me for coffee, I'd give advice, and then that coffee would turn into two, then a meal, then a group of people would take me for a meal, then dinner, and soon I was invited over to people's homes, just giving advice on some of my experiences. So on one end, I had businesses all along, but on the other end, I sort of got a passion for equipping and connecting people through advising them through business help because I would have the privilege of, I guess, talking to different sectors at the same time, and you sort of start to see the patterns and the similarities. So I didn't know there was a career code coaching, but I was always doing trainings and empowering people, particularly the youth. I was a youth myself. I don't know where youth ends, but I'm in my 40s now, but whatever. So, I just got into this thing, and then I started doing personal development workshops, and met the likes of mentors like Tony Robbins, Virgin Blue CEO, Richard Branson, Robert Kiyosaki, these type of people that we all read about. And then I found that there was a systematic way to help people. So I got into starting my own consulting business. But along the way, one of my goals was to retire in my 30s, live a island lifestyle because, Zambia being landlocked, I used to watch Fantasy Island and go like, yeah, I think one day when I arrive successfully, I want to live on an island. So I accomplished that. I lived in Bali for 7 years. But while I was in Bali, I met so many businesses, tech businesses, all sorts of businesses. And one of them was a waste management business. And at that time, as I used to tell you in offline, I've always had coaches, and this coach would always challenge me by saying, things like those who teach don't do, and those who do don't teach. And this really annoyed me, of course, because I was just like, okay, so if I'm doing all the teaching, then I'm not doing. So maybe it's high time I get into some product or tangible related business to confirm that what I'm teaching actually works. So in Bali, I started a business there, which was an organic juice business, and loved the product side of that business. And then so when I was consulting for this guy who was doing a waste management business, it was a natural progression for me to see what impact he was making with, particularly in Indonesia, was widowed women, disadvantaged people, helping them create micro enterprises. And in my head, I was just like, if only I can take this concept back to Africa, I think we can really do something great. which I couldn't see myself doing in the consulting space, because to duplicate a consultant is much harder than to duplicate a waste collector in that example. So that's how I transitioned into eco-tribal, the waste management industry, and definitely love it ever since. I've always seen a direct connection with community and impacting people directly. It's just really, really important to me in my legacy for part of my life at the moment, which is what I want to see, what impact I can make before my time is up. So I hope that answers your question in a long way, but yeah, that's been the journey.
I think so. I think it does answer my question somewhat. You have had a long journey, very interesting, meeting so many great people. Like those are just a dream. But yeah, so it's really inspiring. So I just want to ask, like, do you think that maybe also part of it was, do you think was it connected to maybe your love for the environment? Was there that aspect other than business to it, you know, like
Yeah, good question. I'll be very honest. No, not really. There was no environmental drive per se. Now that being said, um, okay, where do I start? Okay, I think this is my opinion. Yeah, there's the political aspect of the environment, where people feel, for example,
mm-hmm,
global warming is a hot topic at the moment, carbon emissions and all sorts of things. And
absolutely
there's a lot of people behind that who are feeling it's a responsibility of, say, the government to do something, or private sector to be charged more. There's that group of people who are doing something for the environment. In my case, I feel the driving force, it would be wrong to say I wasn't doing it for the environment, but it'd be wrong to say I was doing it exclusively for the environment. And what I mean by that is, I was just been
right.
raised by some really great parents who just always used to tell us things like, leave the world better than or leave that place better than you found it. Like, would go visit a room or your bedroom or the kitchen. And there was just this emphasis of, okay,
Mm-hmm.
just because there's dirt around or the bed's not made, doesn't mean you can't do something about that. You know what I mean? So for
Right,
me, I'm more in that group of people who feel by just being a great custodian of your space or your business should inevitably lead to being good for the environment. And to think through that process is just being a good, responsible person. So I've never been a political person.
right,
I can't say that was the drive, but I saw the impact of the impact on community. Like I told you, I'm an entrepreneur coach by nature. I saw myself having a direct application of my lessons in a practical business that anyone could do, or almost anyone. And number two, the
right.
barriers of entry were very minimum because the waste is everywhere. And then three, like I said, the impact on the environment was there because the more we teach people better habits of incentivizing them to clean the environment and their space financially, more likely they'll continue to do it, which is very unlikely in our environment, as you know, when people are not incentivized. So I think there was just a trifactor combination that really drove me to do that.
Okay, I think that makes sense. It's like it's just who you are as a person. You're just taught to take care of your surroundings, and that just, yeah, that's natural. So it's not like I have to make the world clean, a better place. It's
Yeah.
just who you are. So I think
No,
that
it's
makes
too big.
sense.
Yeah,
Mm,
it's too big a problem. I
yes,
can
it
fix my
is. It
bedroom,
is.
you know.
It
I
is.
can't really go and change other
Right,
people around me
right.
to do the same. Yeah, yeah. Or yet, anyway. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, they might get influenced from you being clean. But then you also mentioned how you also mentioned how like waste is a big problem. It's everywhere. And yeah, in Zambia we have people that like to litter. We have households that I don't know if they choose to not pay waste management fees, but when they don't, they find other ways of like waste disposal, and then that just becomes a big problem. So I was wondering, and of course we have many other challenges with that, like littering and waste disposal being everywhere. But I was wondering, how does Eco Tribe make communities more cleaner and more sustainable, or how do you try to do that?
Yeah, forgive me, I'm muting you sometimes because I'm actually near a runway for
Oh,
trucks,
sure,
waiting on some logistics stuff for my packaging. Um, okay, I think it's
sure.
passed. So the question was, how does Eco Tribe actually make environment? more sustainable and cleaner? Was that your question?
Yes, yeah. Like the communities that you work within or with. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I think, well, the simple answer to that question is we do our bit by being involved as many parts of the value chain as we can. So one of my biggest failings in life, biggest financially actually, to date, was I started coming home with what
Oh,
I knew and attacked the value chain of waste management at the factory production level. And that was one of the most expensive things I've ever done, which didn't work because we underestimated this the lack of infrastructure around the collection section of it, if that makes sense. So now where we have impact is we had to start by doing a garbage collection business first, which is where we're now taking up a zone in Minsundu in Dola. And that zone collects from the residential and the commercial areas in that area. And what we've been doing is we're trying to sort out the organic waste. That's the stuff that rots, with separating it from the inorganic. And that's the stuff we keep. And then we add that to our value chain of compacting and sorting at this stage. So I would say the garbage collection model as a business is the one direct way we're trying to do it. And what's been a blessing for us that we are going there is we're connecting more locally with the communities. But secondly, we're also understanding the psychology of the residentials. As you said, yes, in Zambia, people would rather dig a pit or muganda, fill it up, but they don't realize in rainy season it floods and everything contaminates and it becomes a problem again. Not only is it illegal, but it has long-term ramifications if they have a borehole next to it, et cetera, et cetera. So another truck is starting off. So just being part of that process is good. And then now, like I said, we're stepping into step 2, which is the collections, and now empowering more waste workers to kind of go into other communities outside our zone, collect specific materials that we are looking for, and then bring them back for us to process them. So I would say we're at tier 2 of that project, and then tier 3 is I'll go back to this place I lost all my money to re-attack the factory level, because at that level we have to do very big volumes that we just couldn't have done if we didn't start at the bottom of the value chain. Yeah. So I hope that answers your question.
okay. Something that I just want to clear. What exactly, maybe for our listeners, we have young girls also listening. What exactly is the value chain? What does it consist of? I just want to clear that.
No one's ever asked me that. Well, this is how I see it, because I'm also organizing the business in a new model that I can't share yet with you, but I will share once I launch it, because if it doesn't work, then I don't make it public. But if it does work, then I think I'll share it for more people to use, because then it's viable, right? So I'm just experimenting on that. But for now,
Okay.
the way I see the value chain is a pyramid. I've drawn a pyramid in my notes, and you have at the bottom the waste producers. So this could be industrial homes, commercial properties, whatever. So that's the base of where the waste production is being done. Then above that, we'll have the waste collectors, and that's where my garbage collection business is. That's where
Okay.
also the collectors of the plastics. Sometimes you see in the streets, street kids and people with plastic bags doing their thing. So again, in each tier, there are business models, but in each tier, there's also opportunities for innovation. And I'll share that with you maybe in another interview. But for now, I'm looking at how can I optimize this so that we also it's not just the people. The unfortunate part is we don't have a lot of infrastructure or good business acumen from people to show the collections are done on time, for as an example. So there's just a lot of problems in this sector. The collectors don't have safety gear. Sometimes they dump sites, contamination, uh, mobility. This is endless of issues. So that's the second one. Then the third one is what I'll call the processors or compactors. And the third one, sorry. And these are basically the guys who now get this material.
Right.
So I'm in this value chain as well. We'll sort it, and then we'll bale it, ready for it to be taken to the next value chain, which is the manufacturing level. So that's where you get now your big companies like Trade Kings, who are maybe taking up, tons of processed plastic pallets or whatever other inputs, cardboard boxes, whatever. they're making things like trays, they're making things like pavers or rooftops or poles, whatever they'll manufacture from that point. And then the last point is the retail. I'll be honest, not very many people play in this space. Oh, I guess you put the ShopRites and people like that in there, but there's not really yet. And this is something I want to create, a retail model that is specifically for just recycled products exclusively. So people know if they go to
That's
ShopRite,
good.
they'll get it and contaminate the world, or they come to Eco Tribe or Eco Shop, as we call it, and they'll know that we're using
Right.
only products that have already been reused and upcycled. And I think that's where we need to
Yeah.
move the culture to, because then we'll start banning a lot of things just by purely incentivizing the right businesses. So those are the 5 or 6 tiers that I've drawn out in my head and in my focus board. And my job is to try and plug all the value chains and work my way up, because I find if I work my way down, the infrastructure doesn't support it. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for clearing that up. I think that makes sense. So you have your the waste management companies. I think I missed one. The manufacturers, and then you have your own retailing store. Yeah, that makes sense, I think. All right, thank you for clearing that up. So again,
No
another
problem.
thing that kind of, you know, got me curious in your description of Eco Tribe, you mentioned that you are dedicated to community capacity building. Did you get me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, in your description of Eco Tribe, you mentioned that you are dedicated to community capacity building. So I just want you to explain what that is as well. Yeah, in
Yeah.
terms of Eco Tribe, of course.
Um, Yeah, that's good. I'm glad you clarified, because there is the political arm of capacity building, which, to be honest, I don't think. And I've got my strong views on what that looks like and doesn't look like, but I think to bring it home
Mm-hmm.
again and keeping it simple, capacity building is being able to not just give a man or a woman a fish, but teach them how to fish. I think, and anything that can do that, I think is in the right direction. So for me, that's my North Star, my compass. So in terms of Eco Tribe, I recognize, like I said to you, I couldn't duplicate a million coaches, because at least the literacy, numeracy levels needed to be a consultant, emotional intelligence through experiences to give good valued advice was just not as replicable as I wanted, or at least as fast as I wanted. I might be 1,000 years old before I get the right coaches enough to make the impact on the target audience I'm looking for, which is a lot. But in terms of Eco Tribe, if you remember the value chain that we talked about, it's very easy then for me to create models within each of these value chains to then encourage people to step into micro enterprise at each level. And obviously, the simplest and most easiest accessible one is at the second tier, which is the collectors and the sorters. So we naturally already have an ecosystem of particularly mothers and children that go around collecting plastics in different facets, storing them somewhere or paying them off, whether they're paying them back to the retail stores to use them for bottles to put cooking oil and the like, and or they're getting these plastics and then going themselves sometimes hundreds of kilometers, 50 kilometers plus, to the manufacturing chain at above, who are then these people buying off them, what they call the off takers. So again, all these people are entrepreneurial in the sense that they're, for lack of a better word, contractors doing the bidding of collections on behalf of the next value chain. So for me, I feel at least my mission is to create more capacity in those areas by providing more infrastructure, like I mentioned, providing small, basic entrepreneurial programs to teach people about financial literacy. See, all the things I've been doing for 20 years, but just now we have a vehicle